Hey, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to you this evening. My name is Nate Eaton. This is Courtroom Insider live from Phoenix. And when I say live, we are live. And I want to do a warm welcome to everybody who is joining us for the first time. We had a major influx yesterday of new viewers and people who have emailed and messaged me asking exactly what Courtroom Insider is. Am I an attorney? No, I'm not an attorney. I'm a reporter from Idaho who has been following the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell case for the past 5 years. And this program started back in 2023 when Lori Vallow was on trial in Idaho. In fact, it was 2 years ago this very week when her trial started in Ada County. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom, and we were able to get audio at the end of the day. And so I started this little live program on YouTube and Facebook to fill our audience in, mainly people living in East Idaho who couldn't go to the trial because it was in Boise, several hours away. And then it just grew. It grew from 15 minutes to 30 to an hour. And then we did it again the following year, last year, with Chad Daybell's trial. And here we are for the third time, Lori Vallow's trial, Lori Vallow Daybell's trial in Phoenix, Arizona. And it was a big day today. We have a jury. I mean, it happened fast. And that is what we're going to talk about today. But we're also going to talk about Lori questioning the jury. This was a different Lori than who we saw yesterday, mixing it up with the judge. This was Lori questioning the jurors, the potential jurors. And we kind of saw her line of thinking, and it's possible that she may have given us a hint on her defense or lack thereof. So let us know where you're watching from. We'll do some shout outs at the end of the program tonight. Let's just jump right into it today. We have a jury. We also have Lori questioning the jurors, as I mentioned. What's different in this trial versus the trial in Idaho? There have been some drastic differences that I want to talk about, especially for those of you that might be thinking about coming to Arizona to witness the trial over the next few weeks. Will Lori put on a defense? It seems all along that she is prepping for something, as she had witnesses, as she's wanted to call her experts. But yesterday, that kind of fizzled in a way. Her the judge, her witness, her expert witness, isn't going to be allowed to be called in, and a lot of her other witnesses haven't been served subpoenas, haven't been found. So what are you going to put on for your defense? We'll talk about that. One-on-one with Rexburg Police Lieutenant Hermosillo. Of course, he's keeping an eye on this case, and he played a pivotal role in Idaho. He was the officer, the sworn officer who was in the court for Lori's entire trial back in 2023. He was there for every bit of testimony, every bit of evidence. He saw it all, the only officer that was allowed in. We, of course, will remember Charles Vallow, who is the victim of this case. And we have shout outs, cities, and your questions. So first off, the jury. Here is what we know about the jury. Well, let me kind of explain how the system worked first. So last week actually, several people in Maricopa County, hundreds, got e-questionnaires that they filled out. Do you know anything about the case? Have you ever heard the name Lori Vallow? Do you know J.J. Tiley? If those questionnaires passed and were made it through, like all the questions were cool, then yesterday and this morning, the judge went through a list. He'd say, okay, juror number 2460 said that they've seen media coverage and they have a mother who has cancer and they need to care. I move that they are stricken for hardship. And the prosecution said, I agree. And Lori said, I agree. And the person was removed. Once we got through that process, whoever was remaining in that pool came in this afternoon. And we had, I believe, I tweeted it out. I don't remember the exact number. I think it was 55 maybe who came in. And the goal was to get to 12 jurors and 4 alternates. And then they all filed in. All the spectators, including the media, were put on the left side of the courtroom behind the defense. The jurors came in and they seated 17 up in the jury box. And then they seated the rest on the rows on the other side of the courtroom. And then the judge went through some very generic questions like, Do any of you have a police officer in your family? And do you take the word of a police officer above the word of others simply because he's a police officer? Have any of you had family members convicted of crimes? Have any of you ever been convicted of a crime? These type of questions, and they would raise their numbers and they would be given a mic and they would explain their thoughts on that. And then after that, the prosecution put on headphones hooked to a microphone, and the defense, Lori Vallow, did as well, and then the judge did as well, and then they played white noise over the courtroom. Now, this is what's called a sidebar. In Idaho, they did this a lot, and the attorneys would gather with the judge. The judge would step down from the bench, and they would gather in the corner. Lori, because she's the defendant charged with this crime, she can't approach the judge. She can't approach the witness. She's got to stay at the podium or stay at her table. And in order to communicate effectively in a sidebar, you can't be yelling because people will hear. So they've installed this system, this headphone microphone system, and that's how they're communicating with each other during the sidebars. Pretty interesting. And the white noise is very loud. We can't hear a thing. So they put on these headphones for about 5-10 minutes, and then the judge said, okay, the clerk, maybe it was the judge or the clerk, one of them said, the following jurors are excused. They let a bunch go. And then they sent everybody out in the hall. And then all the remaining jurors came back in, and they were given new numbers. They were seated up in the jury box, and that was the focus for this first round, you could say, which ultimately ended up being the only round. And the judge asked them a few questions, but then Trina Kay got up to ask a few questions of her own. And she said things like, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, Mormons, LDS, it's going to be discussed in this trial. Do any of you have really strong feelings for or against the church? None of the jurors raised their numbers. Do any of you own guns? Several raised their numbers. I believe 10 did. Are any of you considered an expert in guns, where you might hear testimony of the way the trajectory of a bullet, when you might think in your mind, there's no way that gun could have done that, and you might doubt the expert? None of them raised their cards. And then she asked a couple of other questions, and that was that. Then Lori Vallow got to question the jurors. Lori walked up to the podium. They adjusted the mic. She said, my name is Lori Vallow. I'm the defendant. I'm 51. And she started to give her biography, a little bit about herself. And the judge stopped her and said, this is questioning. This isn't statement giving. This isn't biography. This isn't, testifying. This is questioning. And so she proceeded to ask questions. She appeared timid, a little insecure. She would start a question and then stop and look down at her notes. Let me just pull up some of the questions she asked, because I don't know how to describe. I really wish there could have been a video, and it'll be interesting if this is the tactic that Lori chooses to take during the trial, or if it's going to be the Lori we saw yesterday where she's fired up. Okay. Lori asks if they understood that it's the state's 100% burden to prove that she's guilty, and they did. She asks if anyone would have a problem if at the end of the state's case and they didn't prove that she committed a crime at all, they would think, I can't find you innocent until you told me what happened. She hinted at the fact that she might not give a defense. That if at the end of the state's case, if she feels like she does not have to give a defense or testify, if the jury would have a problem with that. None of them raised their numbers. So it got me thinking. I mean, she didn't do a defense in Idaho. Do you remember that? It was weeks and weeks and weeks of the prosecution, and then it was time for the defense, and her attorney said, Your Honor, we feel the state did not meet their burden of proof. We rest. Will Lori do that here? Will the actions of the past few months with these motions and the experts and the witness and calling me and all that, will that be her just saying, well, never mind. They didn't prove their case. I could see it happening. Or I could see Lori trying to put on a defense. I don't know who she's going to call. I don't know what witness they're going to have. But she did ask that question. She said it's human nature to want to hear both sides. Then she asked and said that a bunch of different family dynamics will be introduced at this trial, and asked if anybody would have a problem, and then she stopped. Would anybody have difficulty understanding different family dynamics? And she asked if anyone in the jury had stepbrothers, stepchildren, I think is how it was phrased. And several raised their numbers. And then she called on one to answer, but she couldn't really say the question. And the judge had to jump in and basically say, will your family dynamic of having stepchildren or whatever influence you in how you rule in this case, how you decide? And he explained, no, it doesn't, it won't. And then I thought Lori might jump to the others, but she didn't. She just called on the one and moved along with her questions. She asked, she said, if someone believes, this was, I thought, a good question. She goes, if you believe that I'm innocent and you're the only one in the group, will you have enough courage to stand against all the other group? Because that can be hard. I thought that was a good question. She said, that's hard. Nobody raised their hand saying that. She then proceeded to tell the jurors what part of their job was, and Trina K objected, the prosecutor. The judge stepped in and said, your job is to determine if the state proves its case, jurors. That's your job. I've already told you your job. I should have said this was after the judge went through lengthy instructions about, you have to, anything that you've heard outside the courtroom, you can't bring in. You have to follow the rules of the courtroom, regardless of what you think the rules are or what you might have heard or what people have told you. You have to stick what's in the courtroom. So the judge kind of jumped in. Lori repeatedly took off her glasses, would refer to her notebook, would put them on. I guess vice versa. She'd put them on to read and then take them off to talk to the jurors. She asked if people understood what conspiracy is. And if you did not see or hear a specific agreement, if because there wasn't like a written agreement or some sort of agreement, if it is still conspiracy, nobody raised their things, their numbers. She asked if she did say this is a case where religious beliefs will be discussed a lot. Do any of you have a problem with that? Will it be difficult? Nobody raised their cards. Is there anyone that has had an understanding that the judicial system works differently than the way it's been explained to you today? Nobody raised their cards. Lori asks if anyone would have a prejudice if she again did not testify, and then she was done. I think she questioned maybe 10 minutes. I think Trina K questioned maybe 10 minutes. This judge moved fast. It was so nice. He wanted to get that jury seated. So after that, those questions, back on the white noise, back on the headphones, and then after 5 minutes, the judge said, all right, we'll number whatever she was, a woman who had said she had previous knowledge of the case, I believe through media. He said, will you stand up? You're excused. And everybody in the benches, in the seats, in the gallery, you're excused. And the people who are here, you're the jury. That was that. So what do we know about the juries? We have 13 men and 3 women. A variety of ages, a variety of races. Alternates will be selected by lottery at the end, much like Idaho. They will all sit through the trial. They will all listen to everything. And then at the end, by a random lottery, the clerk will pull out the numbers of who the alternates are. Now, if a juror gets sick, if one gets in trouble for talking about the case, if one comes in and says, I watched Courtroom Insider last night, then the alternate, they'll be dismissed. The alternate will take their place. That happened not at all during Lori's trial 2 years ago, but Chad's, we had a juror who got sick. And I remember talking with the other jurors, and they said he felt horrible that he got dismissed. Like, he felt so bad. He wanted to do it and felt it was his duty, but he was just so sick he couldn't make it. So they cannot talk with anyone about the case. I think the judge stressed this 5 or 6 or 7 times. He said, you can tell people I'm on a jury and it's lasting 5 to 6 weeks. That's it. He said, if anyone tries to talk to you about the case, walk away. If something comes up on your phone about the case, get out of it. If something comes on the TV, turn it off. He repeatedly said, you cannot talk to anybody about this case. I think he stressed it more than in Idaho. I mean, over and over and over, you can't talk to anybody. We'll talk in a minute about the differences between Idaho and Arizona. Also, an interesting fact, these jurors, if they qualify and want, they get $12 a day and they get reimbursed for their mileage. But they can also qualify and request up to $300 a day for their service. There's a jury fund to help. And several of these jurors, that did make a difference, where they were worried that they would have to miss work and they don't get paid jury duty. And because of that, they couldn't serve. But then the judge said, there is this pool, $300 a day that you can get, and plus you can get your $12 a day. So $312 a day. I should say up to $300 a day. And just some quick math here on my iPhone, that's $78,000 a year. Not that anyone's ever going to serve a whole year on a jury. Plus you get Fridays off. But that is nice to know. And that brings me to a topic, kind of a pivot here. Do you get paid jury selection with your job? Do you know? A lot of people, it's up to the company. Legally, in most states, probably all the states, you cannot get fired for going on jury duty. But employers, at least in Idaho, don't have to pay for jury duty. Some states, I would imagine the laws do require you to get paid. If you know, put in the comments if you know what your state's laws are. It might be good to do some research in case you get called to a 5-week jury. It's quite common for these juries to have retired people or elderly people, because they have time, they don't have jobs. And sometimes you will have I'm thinking of the other cases in Idaho where there were retired people, there were some executives who got paid jury duty at larger companies, and then college kids or younger adults. There were some college kids who had to leave because they have finals and classes and whatnot coming up. So these jurors, if they want, in addition to the $12 a day, and they will get fed lunch, will get $300 a day. I mean, the judge even said, if you are at a restaurant and someone comes up to you and says, have you heard about this Daybell case? Do not speak to them. And he said, don't even give the appearance. If you're out in the hallway and you see someone associated with the case or a reporter, he didn't say a reporter, but he said, if you see that, don't speak to them. Don't even say hello, even if you're not talking about the case. Just ignore them. I'll tell you a story. I told this last year. Years ago, we had a reporter covering a story with a sex offender. During the break, our reporter was in the hallway, and so were some jurors. He went up and he started making small talk. Hey, how you doing? Whatever, small talk like you or I would do, just to be friendly. They go in the courtroom. The defense immediately stands up. Your Honor, a reporter was talking with a juror. I want a mistrial. The judge had to call our reporter back into chambers with the prosecution and the defense, and the juror said what exactly happened. Our reporter explained it. We ended up writing a story about that incident so that we were transparent. Luckily, the case was not thrown out. The judge said, okay, nothing nefarious was bad here. But could you imagine had a reporter resulted in a mistrial simply because they were doing small talk with a juror? So that's how important it is with these type of things. Okay, and the last bit of advice. So they were sworn in. I should say they were sworn in. That group was sworn in, and then the judge read them probably 5 or 6 pages of jury instruction. And again, stress, don't talk to anybody, but he talked about, you have to follow the law. If you have questions, put them on note cards and pass them to the court staff. The judge really kept things moving. And the jurors now have the rest of the week to get their affairs in order, let their workers, their employers know they're not going to be in for a few weeks, 1 week up to 6 weeks. We'll see, make family situations, whatever they need to do. And they will return on Monday. there won't be any court until Monday. Now, here are some differences between Arizona versus Idaho. And I want to make it clear before I dive into these that we're talking very different charges here. And several of you are like, what? They have a jury in a day? Like what? Like how does that even happen? And is Arizona even taking this seriously? Seems like they're rushing through this and blah, 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 blah. Lori Vallow was charged with multiple counts in Idaho, including 2 murder charges, a conspiracy to commit murder for Tammy, and all of her other charges. Chad Daybell was facing the death penalty. The gravity of the charges are huge in Idaho. Not downplaying this at all. I hope it doesn't come across that way. But in Idaho, you were dealing with multiple charges. So simply put, that takes longer to explain it all rather than the one charge here. You just say the one charge. In Idaho, there were multiple charges. You had to explain it all. Plus, the jury selection pool here, so much bigger versus Idaho. There are more people in this county than all of Idaho. And I would say, I believe the media coverage has not been as intense here versus there. There has definitely been media coverage here in Arizona for sure. But in Idaho, this was the big story. And remember, the kids were found in Idaho. It was national news. There was a lot of national focus when the kids were found, when Chad and Lori were arrested. It was in Idaho. Well, she was in Hawaii, but brought back to Idaho. The court hearings were in Idaho. Charles was shot and killed, and there wasn't any real media attention nationwide until months later. And then there wasn't really much because Idaho was the focus. So I think it was much easier to find a jury. I will say too, there seemed to be more resources, or the court system here, there's far more people to help, or they're used to these bigger type of trials. I mean, you should see the jury room. The jury room, I didn't go in, but you can see it when you walk in the first floor. It is massive. And they have a whole desk. I mean, it's a whole different game compared to the courts in Idaho, not bashing them. So I think that when I give these kind of comparisons, there are the differences. Here's just a few. The jurors in Arizona can question the witnesses. So at the end of questioning by Lori, the prosecution, and then Lori, and then the prosecution again, if it's their witness, the jury can ask questions. This will be fascinating. They will write the questions down on a note, according to the judge, pass it in, and then the questions will be read. I think that's going to be fascinating. I didn't know this till today, and then someone told me that in the Jodi Arias case years ago, this is what happened. By the way, this courtroom is directly across the hall from where Jodi Arias was tried. And the court staff were telling me that during that trial, that floor, this is on the 5th floor, was packed with people. And they had a waiting area for media and a waiting area for public. And if someone got up in the courtroom to leave, they'd fill it. It was a whole system, and it was madness. We haven't seen that. And hopefully we don't see that here. But this is the same exact, and from what I understand, a lot of the rules changed as far as public and whatnot after the Jodi Arias trial. Things changed a bit. So jurors can question the witnesses here, which will be fascinating to see. Jurors seem to have more freedom. Now, don't take that wrong. What I mean is the jurors during the waiting times, the recesses, they were out in the lobby with all of us. I went out to use the restroom, and there's the jurors. I could have talked to them. I didn't say a word. But it's not, in Idaho, they really, really protected the jurors. You never saw them in the courthouse. They brought them in on vans. I don't believe they're doing that here. They're going to drive in and get organized. I could be wrong, but I think they're just going to come to the downtown courthouse on their own. The jurors, it just seemed, I don't want to say more relaxed. Now, that could change next week. Obviously, next week, they'll have a separate entrance that they can go in and a separate exit. But it just seemed that, this was a little bit more relaxed in a way. Less time at the courthouse versus Idaho. In Idaho, if you remember, the other trials was 8:30 to 3:30 daily with about an hour lunch. And the judge started right at 8:30. We were done at 3:30. The schedule for this will be 10:30 to noon, so 90 minutes, then a 90-minute lunch, 12 to 1:30, then 1:30 to 4:30 with a break in between. So basically 10:30 to 4:30 Monday to Thursday. Many of you are like, what? That's the easiest schedule in the world. You know, I've been here a few days and I can see why. Maricopa County is massive. If you've got to get your kid off to school and then you've got to drive downtown and get parking, I would imagine they have parking for them, but you got to get the kid off to school at 8:30, get ready for the day, drive downtown, park. You got to be there around 10 by 10:15. Then you got to get home. I can see why they would do this. It's so large. And believe me, my wrists are so happy with that for the typing and whatnot. But they will spend less time at the courthouse, and they don't do courts on Fridays. I think we've talked about that. Makes it easier probably to find jurors with that type of a schedule. Same rules we talked about. They cannot talk about the case. And we talked about Lori questioning the jury. So that is a recap of everything that happened today. Again, there's no video. I know what many of you want to see video. There was no video, and the judge has sealed the record with jury selection. But starting on Monday, we will have video every day, and you can start watching it on the East Idaho News YouTube channel at noon. Why noon when court starts at 10:30? Well, 10:30 Arizona time is 11:30 Idaho time, and we have to hold the video for 30 minutes. There is a delay. Right at noon, that video will start. So be sure you subscribe and hit the bell so that you know when we're live, you can watch it. We'll actually probably start the live an hour before. I will be live updating and tweeting when the second court starts. So if you want to, read and get caught up on what's happening and then flip over and watch the live stream, you can do that. All right, I want to jump into this interview with Detective Lieutenant Ray Hermosillo. He, of course, I mentioned earlier, was the lead detective on the Idaho case. And we Zoomed for several minutes the other day just to talk about the case, what he's looking forward to, if he thinks there'll be any differences, and also his thought on the Dateline interview with Lori. So here is Detective Lieutenant Hermosillo. All right, Lieutenant Hermosillo, here we are, third trial in a third year. Is there anything that you're not, I don't want to say looking forward to, but anything that you're anticipating to come out of this trial?
Nate, I don't think so. I mean, we've heard a lot of what she said. I think it's going to be pretty repetitive from the Idaho trials. I don't think anybody's going to get any new information, maybe little bits and pieces, but I think it's going to be pretty repetitive.
There are, of course, the videos of, Charles asking for help, and then the videos of Lori on the day that Charles was shot and killed. How vital do you think those pieces of evidence will be to this trial for a jury who has never seen any of this and doesn't know anything about it?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Oh yeah, there's the videos of Charles, asking for help, and then the videos of Lori. There's a lot of video in this case
Right.
of Lori the day that Charles was shot, of Charles talking to police about how his wife, was crazy, so to speak. How do you think that's going to play to jurors who have never seen any of this stuff before?
I mean, it's to me, I think it's going to be pretty damning. With the video with Lori standing outside after Charles was shot by Alex, and she's joking and smiling. I think when a jury sees that, just the lack of disregard for human life, I think that's going to hurt her.
When you think back on the case in Idaho, is there anything that you wish could have been brought in that you guys weren't able to get in at the trial, that the prosecution wasn't, or anything that you were really hoping would have made it into the jurors?
That's a good question. There's so much evidence in these cases. I'm sure that there's nothing that sticks out in my mind, but there's so much evidence. I could be forgetting something. There were terabytes and terabytes of information. that we had gone through. We have. And so I'm sure in those terabytes of information, there are some things that I wish came in. I wish a little bit more of the Arizona stuff would have come in just a little bit. But, I don't think we needed it.
What do you think of Lori representing herself?
It's going to be interesting, right? Hopefully she has somebody that is kind of coaching her with court procedure and policy. I think it's going to be longer, maybe than people expect, just because there's going to be some trial and error on her part on what she can say and what she can't say and what the prosecutors object to and things they allow. I'm sure they're going to give her a little bit more leeway than they would just a normal defense attorney. But it's going to be interesting to see how she maneuvers through that.
Right. Yeah. I've heard judges try to really be careful on a pro se defendant just because there's always appellate issues and you don't want to miss one little thing up and have a retrial.
Right.
What have you thought of her behavior thus far? I don't know if you've seen any of the hearings to date.
I haven't seen any of the hearings. I've seen bits and pieces, and it's Lori. I mean, there's nothing she can say surprises me anymore at this point. Her actions are have been the same throughout the last 5 years. Just the lack of disregard, there's no remorse. It's everybody else's fault. She has no fault, no blame in anything. That's kind of been her MO this entire time. So the things I see on TV, I really haven't followed too closely down in Arizona, but the things I've seen, that's Lori.
Is that the same thought you had watching Dateline?
Yeah, it is because you forget I've listened to her speak in jail phone calls.
Mm.
And so and everybody really hasn't because that's not public record. But it's kind of the same thing, right? She's talking about the same things, her um just her lack of remorse or just the nonchalant attitude, like there's and it's a game and it's funny and the manipulation. I've heard that day in and day out on those jail phone calls. So when I see her on TV on Dateline kind of spouting the same thing, it's no surprise to me.
So you're saying the behavior we've seen and heard from her, it's not like that's a show. That's what you're hearing on those jailhouse calls when she was talking to Chad.
Absolutely. Yeah, it may be a show, right? But she's been putting on this show for the last 5 years. It's the same Lori that I've listened to for months.
So when she would talk with Chad, did it appear like was she the one wearing the pants? So to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think she was, they both manipulated each other in different ways. But when it came down to it, and she's the one who kind of not guided, that's a poor choice of words. They both manipulated each other. She probably manipulated a little bit more because she was better at it than Chad.
Hmm. I spoke with Rachel Smith, and she said it was interesting to see Lori during jury selection in Idaho with men, potential jurors. With her behavior and that there was some jurors you felt she'd tell her attorney she really wanted certain guys on there. Do you think now that she's her own defense attorney, are we going to see more of that with she has a different appeal or a different way she acts with men versus women?
Absolutely. I mean, Lori's been like that. She uses that sex appeal to manipulate, right? And to get what she wants. And so when these guys would come in that she wanted, now she has more authority than she did, I think, when Jim and John were representing her because they were her defense attorneys and they kind of looked out for her best interest. But now that she's her own attorney, she gets to say who she wants and who she doesn't. And there's no pushback if she wants the wrong one. And it's super important with the jury selection. I mean, that's where this whole case starts, right? In court, you have to pick that jury and you have to do it the right way. And it's super important to get the right jurors. So I think she's going to to go after a certain type. Yes.
Hmm. Are you going to watch?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll probably watch a little bit of it. I probably won't watch the whole thing. Um, I'll watch a little bit just to see how what the vibe is, the atmosphere, how she's doing as far as representing herself. Um, yeah, I'll watch a few
Is
days of it.
it part of the reason you don't want to watch? I mean, I don't want to say you're kind of over it, but that chapter in your life is kind of done, and it consumes so much of you that now you're like, another one, and then another one after that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always have this case, right? I'll always be a part of it. It's never really over because of, interviews or little news clips. But yeah, I guess for lack of better words, I'm just tired of the whole thing. And court every day and the last two hearings were exhausting. And so I kind of feel bad for those guys down there because they're just about ready to go through what we went through up here. Um, but yeah, there's other things now that are kind of priority, working and yeah, it's been kind of a breath of fresh air to be honest with you. Not having to worry about trial prep and meeting with attorneys and making sure everything's squared away and ducks in a row. So it's been a breath of fresh air, I think.
Speaking of trial prep, there's a lot of detectives and police officers from Arizona who are on the witness list for the prosecution. How do you guys, just in general, prepare for trial?
No, it. I think everybody's different, right? You meet with the prosecutor, you go over what he tells you, what he's going to have you testify to. You go over your reports, you go over evidence, you go over every little detail. So you don't have to refer to notes, you don't have to refer to reports when you get on the stand. You should have most of that memorized. With this case, there's so much information depending on what you're going to testify to. I mean, I when I testified, I found it useful to kind of not just go back to what I was testifying to, but go back and review the entire case and the important dates and times and players and get to know everything. So when you're up there, you kind of have kind of a little bit advantage over those questions defense attorneys are going to ask because you know your stuff. So it's going to be a lot of time prep, um, a lot of time with the prosecutors just going over everything. And there's a lot of evidence.
And the defense attorney is going to, in a lot of cases, go after the police. They're going to try to, point out any tiny, dot that isn't I that isn't dot and T that's not crossed, and really try to make you guys look foolish or incapable of doing your job.
Right. And we know that going in, we know that they're going to attack us, and that's a common strategy, and we don't take it personal. We know it's going to happen. The defense attorneys have their jobs to do. In this case, she has her job to do and try to pick apart a case. So we don't take offense to it. We just make sure that we have everything lined up that we need. And Nate, when I say there were hours and hours and hours of prep time, months ahead of time, and I'm sure those guys down in Arizona are doing the exact same thing. Great detectives, so I'm sure they're going to be well prepared.
So, watching the Dateline interview, did anything stick out? Anything new? Did you walk away like, oh, that's interesting what she said here or there?
Um, no, I find it, you know, she tried to imply that Tylee had accidentally killed JJ, and I just none of the evidence matches, and of course it's not true, but there was really nothing that she said that just always bothers me to hear, and nothing can be further from the truth. But there was nothing she really said to me that stuck out that I really didn't know, or I really wasn't expecting her to answer that way. She pretty much stayed on par with how she's been.
No. My thanks to Detective Hermosillo for his interview. I got to tell you that a story that I may have told before, but the first trial On like the second or third day, they showed the autopsy photos of JJ, and I was not prepared. I have two boys. I thought I'm a tough reporter. I can confront Lori Vallow in Hawaii. I'm fine. Normally, I don't show emotion. I think I can pretty much do my job. I was not prepared for those photos. And I'll always remember seeing JJ with the tape on his mouth, around his head, his ankles. I mean, I have the picture right here with his PJ pants and a pull-up and his socks, the Skechers socks. Anyway, I came and did after court that day. Detective Hermosillo came up to me outside and said, "Are you okay?" And we hadn't really talked. We talked a bit on and off about the case. He said, "But are you all right?" And he asked how I was, and I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then I did Courtroom Insider that night. He texted me, or maybe even called me that night and said, "I want to be sure you're okay. Are you okay?" We have to see crap like that a lot. Not maybe that bad, but I want to be sure you're okay. So I respect him and appreciate that he did that. I've remembered that because, you know, you go through that stuff and you got to see it. And hats off to all the law enforcement that do it. Tomorrow, Doug Hart's going to be here from the FBI, retired FBI. Remember Detective Hart, Special Agent Hart? He went through Lori's iCloud. He went through terabytes of data looking for the nuggets that they could bring into the case. The texts, the storm. Remember the storm? He's the one. I'll never forget. If you're brand new, you're probably like, what are you talking about? He's found a text that where Chad said to Lori, just grab the storm and head off into the sunset or something like that. And I think Lindsay Blake, maybe it was Rachel Smith, said, what did the storm mean? And he said he was referring to Chad's penis. And the woman behind me in the courtroom went, oh, gasp. And I tweeted that, and that was my most tweeted tweet from the whole trial. The storm was Chad Daybell's penis. And I'm sorry if kids are watching and you didn't want that said, but that night, a huge storm moved into Boise. I kid you not. It was crazy, crazy storm, lightning, thunder. It was an amazing storm. The next day, from what I heard, one of the court clerks who had not been watching the trial walked into the office in Ada County and said, man, did you guys see that big storm last night? And they all busted out laughing. Anyway, Detective Hart found that tweet. Special Agent Hart found that tweet. We're going to talk about the other data on the iCloud. We're going to talk about so much more. So join me for Detective Hart, then Special Agent Hart. He retired from the FBI, and now he is the chief deputy of the sheriff's office in Canyon County in Idaho. So he has a new job. We're also going to have other guests this week, including, well, I won't say yet, but someone associated with the Jodi Arias trial from here in Arizona, an attorney. You know what? I'll just say it. I'm working to book Jodi Arias's defense attorney, and I think he's going to do it. This is the guy who defended Jodi Arias, the last high-profile, massive case that happened here in Maricopa County. I want to have him on here for you to hear about what is it like to defend a woman at the center of a high-profile case. Jodi also did media interviews like Lori did with Dateline. Jodi was also described as narcissistic, in love with the camera. She had her hair done. Similarities, and it was a death penalty case, but the jury couldn't decide on death, so they had to retry it. They did it twice. So we're going to have him later on this week. So tomorrow is going to be Doug Hart. Thursday, stay tuned for who we're going to have. And then on Friday, I'm curious to know what your questions are for Rachel Smith, Special Prosecutor Rachel Smith. Please put them in the comments or email me, because Friday's going to be a special Q&A with Rachel Smith. Anything you've wanted to know about prosecuting a high-profile crime, a murder, she's prosecuted over 100 murders, a death penalty case, all bets are on. You can ask whatever you want, and we're going to go back and forth with Rachel. She's willing to do this, so please send in your questions, think them out, and we will have that Friday. And then on Sunday, we'll be back with a recap of what next, not a recap, a preview of what next week is going to look like. Okay. So tomorrow we've got Doug Hart. Thursday, we'll hopefully have some news about Jodi Arias and maybe another special guest. I was supposed to record yesterday, but she had to cancel. Friday, we'll have Rachel Smith, and then Sunday, we'll be back. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Alan Browning with Browning Law. He makes Courtroom Insider happen. We appreciate his support so that I can come all the way to Arizona and bring this to you every night. I want to show you one of the shirts I haven't shown you yet. You know Peggy, our lovely moderator? We made this shirt for her. I come for the news, stay for the comments. This one is now available if you want this one. All of you commenters should get this. You can buy that at East Idaho News/shop. SHOP. We're now shipping worldwide. Somebody from Australia bought a shirt today, and I was so happy to see that. And if you missed some of our others, stand by. We have Guilty of Following East Idaho News. I was going to wear this one yesterday to show Lori. I'm not guilty of anything, just guilty of following East Idaho News. We have the Ain't Nobody Got Crime for that. There you go. And we have our mugshot shirt. So many of you got these last year. I can't thank you enough. Your purchases of these last year paid for me to cover all the trials. So thank you very much for that. Life goal, keep my mugshot off East Idaho News. And this is one I don't think I've shown you. It simply says on the front, Local News Matters. And on the back, Local News Matters with our logo. And here on the sleeve, we also have our logo. This one costs a bit more because we put our logo on the sleeve. I didn't realize that it would cost more till after the fact. Thank you all so much for your support. We're going to get to your questions right now, along with some shout outs. Before we do that, I want to shout out Jackie. Jackie came to court today. I met Jackie a few weeks ago at one of the hearings. She's from here in Arizona. She came to court today. She brought me this bag. She brought some other reporters' bags as well. I haven't really opened it, but I'm going to open it now. You want to do a unveiling? Oh, look at this. True crime, current events, music, Eagles, fun. She has in here a bunch of yummy treats. How kind. Suckers, Laffy Taffy. You guys are the best. She gave me some Tylenol that I desperately needed earlier. A little first aid kit. This is great. Some toothbrush and a toothpaste. And some wipes to make sure I'm sanitized. Anyway, Jackie, you're the best. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we can do some questions. Are you ready? Let me get the questions from you. We have shout outs, by the way, to Becky Davis. Hi, Becky. Heidi Lindsay. Deborah's been with us since 2020. Thank you, Deborah. Daniel Eaton. I don't think I'm related to a Daniel, but if I am, what a name. Jamila Woodford. John Sebaksek. Sorry, John. Alex Howard and the Pontoon Amigos. Janet Johnson. Nicole Richmond. Tess Miller. Joyce Hinks. Josie Preston. And Annie Jordan. Yes, Annie Jordan ordered a shirt from Australia. Thank you. Cities where you all are watching from tonight. Wichita, Kansas. Afton, Wyoming. Carson City, Nevada. Fairhope, Alabama. Swan Valley, Idaho. Australia. What time is it in Australia? Oh, it's got to be midday, I think. St. Cloud, Minnesota. Aberdeen, Idaho. I have had the best mashed potatoes of my life in Aberdeen. I spoke at an event a few years ago, and the Mennonite women from the church there made the meal. Oh my gosh, those potatoes were incredible. I've told everybody, if you go to Aberdeen, find the Mennonite women. They cook, they like cater. You will not be disappointed. New Zealand, Canada, Lyons, Illinois, and White Rock, British Columbia. Thank you for watching. Okay, I just looked at our numbers, by the way, right now. I think we've had more people watching tonight than ever before, and I don't know why, and I just can't thank you enough. Corey, do all the donations go to Nate's candy addiction? No, Corey, they don't. I am eating less candy or trying to keep it under control. I have chocolate cherries in the fridge. but they don't. The donations, truth be told, and thank you to everybody who's donated, they go to our newsroom. They go to our newsroom so that we can hire new people, so that we can travel for stories, so that we can pay money to get court documents. Those documents that we post, that I share with you, we pay 50 cents a page every time we want them. It's not like we can just call up the court and send them. I spent 25 bucks last week getting court documents. So thank you. Do you think Lori's mad at you, Nate, for talking to Colby? I don't think so. I heard she was upset that I spoke to Summer last year, or upset at the contents of our conversation. So but I don't know if she's upset if I talked to Colby. Maybe she was. Maybe she's seen it. I don't know. Is Lori facing the death penalty in Arizona? She's not, because it is a conspiracy charge. Forrest, do you think Lori will have the emotional composure to represent herself through the whole trial, or do you think the judge will have someone else finish it for her? That's a good question. The judge, I don't think is going to jump in unless it really goes off the rails. And I don't think it will, but I do think that she can say, I'm going to let my advisory council take over. I don't think she will. I think she's especially seeing her question jurors today, I think she's seeing that this might be a little more challenging than she thinks, but I do not see her handing off the reins to somebody else. I could be wrong. Nate needs a Sam's Club gift card. This is from Snake Hips. He goes there to stock up on snacks, and we know Erica did not pack his suitcase because he forgot his belt and tie. That's funny. I do love Sam's Club. But guess what? I found my belt. My belt was under this chair, and I don't know how long it was there, but I found it this morning, and I said, today's going to be a good day because I found my belt. Meanwhile, I had already bought 2 other belts because I wanted to be sure I had a belt. Anyway, little personal there, but thank you. I found my belt, and I do love Sam's Club. Rabid Raccoon, would Lori or Chad be considered serial killers or spree killers? Would they have kept killing if they hadn't gotten caught? Who would have been next? Well, that's pure speculation, but, and I believe this definition of a serial killer is any death over 3. I read that somewhere. I don't know the source, though. I will say, I think if Alex had lived and continued to buy into their beliefs, and they ran out of money, and they would have run out of money fast because where they were in Hawaii was very expensive. I think Alex could have been next. I think that they may have taken out a policy on him, and he could have been next. And then maybe Zulema. In the early days, it looked like it might be Melanie's kids, perhaps her niece's children. Chad's kids never were anywhere near this, but I've often wondered your question of what would have happened had they never been caught. How would they have lived, like, financially? Would they have, like, gotten jobs? I don't know. That's a great question. Jordan says Lori and Chad still have followers. People are still in hiding because of them. Do you think she's wasting all this time in representing herself so she can get the witness list, phone number, and addresses? I don't think so. I don't know what she would do with them, and I truly don't know how many followers they still have. They probably do. Obviously, they're not going to come forward and say I'm still following them, but there's always a fascination with murderers, with criminals. So maybe the following has changed from religion to this. Other than her parents, everyone on the witness list, like Nate, are people she believes have messed her up. I really hope she doesn't get Nate's address. You know, I'm worried for you. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if she has my address, but she knows where I work. And for a while there in the early on days, we did have extra security at my work and at my house when the police were driving by quite regularly. And we put up cameras at my house, and we still have them. So yeah, just to be safe. And if Alex had not died and been out after the confrontation in Hawaii, I really don't know what would have happened. Not saying that I was going to die, but I know the police were concerned for them. Susie, do you know how Lori's getting civilian clothes for the trial? I believe defense attorneys generally help with this, but she doesn't have one. I do know. I do know that she requested some of her clothes from Idaho and from her trial there. And I do know of a woman who is helping supply the clothes. Just a woman in public who is sent her the clothes, and I've been in touch with. She's a very nice lady, and yeah, so that's how she's getting the clothes. How will sidebars be handled during the trial if Lori's movements in the courtroom are restricted? Lisa asks this. How can the judge make a decision if and where Lori can stand when she's giving opening statements, closing arguments, and questioning witnesses? Well, I kind of discussed that earlier. The sidebars are handled with the headphones. Also, Lori can stay at her the table and go to the podium, and that's it. She is wearing a shock belt called the rack belt. And the deputy in there has a controller. Many of you have messaged me about this. Lori did not want to wear it. She brought this up yesterday. She said, Your Honor, they said that if there was extra security in here, I didn't need the shackles or the handcuffs or the rack belt. The judge said, sorry, my order is you're wearing the rack belt. And it's more than a jolt from what I've been told. It is a full-on tase, like a somebody sent me a very funny video. Well, never mind. A very funny video of a woman commenting on this and how if we see Lori start to, jolt, it's because of that rack belt. One day I'll do a story on the rack belt, but I won't get tased myself. Becky, is it possible for Lori to get Chad on the witness list? Not at this point. Witness list is old and done and deadlines passed, so Chad cannot testify. Would have been fascinating had she listed him. What would have happened, because I don't think they would have brought him over from Idaho. She would have had to really justify to the court how he could help her. Will you be staying in Arizona or traveling back and forth? From Janet, I will be staying in Arizona. However, I have decided I'm going to go home tomorrow because there's no court till Monday. So I'm going to leave tomorrow, but don't worry, we'll still do Courtroom Insider. I might just have a different background or I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm going to go home and it'll be nice to see my family. Shoot, if my kids are watching, I just gave away the secret. It was going to be a secret. Never mind. I might not go home. Otherwise, I'll be here for the duration, other than a couple weekends where I have things. Was Lori in handcuffs today? No. What's your go-to snack this year? And is Jordan with you filming? Tess, Jordan's coming out Saturday. Jordan will be here Saturday. He'll stay a few days and then he'll head back. He's going to make sure that our video system, that you get the video. And so if anything goes wrong, blame him, not me. No, he's so good at stuff like this. In fact, he went into my computer before I came on to make sure we didn't have any glitches tonight like last night. Come to find out, my computer was doing updates, but also there was a massive internet failure here in this hotel. And so we were offline till all day. Jordan just messaged and said, how is everything working? But yes, Jordan will be here and we'll have to have him do some videos. Do you think Lori did that interview with Keith to mess up jury selection? Perhaps. It didn't stick though. Who pays for the private investigators? The defense would, but I imagine she's like in Idaho, the defense is public defenders. They were authorized to hire an investigator. So he billed by the hour and the state paid. And I imagine that's the same here. It's not Lori. She doesn't have any money. Does the law require both men and women on the jury, or can Lori exclude women from the final 16? Well, we don't know the back and forth. All that we know is the one that was removed from the final group said she had watched stuff on the news, or she had previous knowledge of the case. And she was a woman. And it just so happened that I don't know though how maybe they listed out the ones they wanted and the judge compared and put them up there. That could have been done behind the scenes, but I don't know how it got where the jury was so heavily stacked with men. But, that's how it is. Josie, I hope everyone has voted for Nate as Idaho's Person of the Year. No. No, you all deserve the Audience of the Year. Rachel talked about how Lori waived her appeals, but yeah, we heard Lori talk to the judge about her appeal attorneys in Idaho. Help us understand. So Lori waived the first initial, I forget what it's called. I reported on it. There's an initial thing you have to file within 30 or 60 days where you automatically ask the judge automatically takes a look at your case to make sure everything was done right. Lori waived that, which Jim Archibald, I believe, said that in all of his history, no one's ever done that. She waived it. So then it went straight to the appellate attorneys, which I believe are an automatic. They automatically review. So she didn't waive that. So she is working with an appellate attorney right now. I don't know how quickly that's going simply because she's here and he's there. And I would imagine once Idaho's wrapped up, they'll focus on that. Or once Arizona's wrapped up, they'll focus on that in Idaho. And then she'll come back here for the Arizona stuff. The people who bought Chad's house had it demolished. How is the progress coming on their new vision of what will appear there? Have they even announced yet what they plan to do with the property? They have not yet. It's sitting there. You drive out there and it feels like a different place. Peaceful, quiet. I don't think they're in a hurry to rush it. And we'll see what happens, but there's no further updates on that. Margaret said, why do you call Lori Vallow almost every day? Maybe she's got you caught in her web. Be careful. Oh, I hope not, Margaret. Honestly, for reporting purposes, with Chad and Lori, it's easier to call one Vallow and one Daybell. But then she insisted that it's Daybell, so now they're both Daybells, so now I go with Lori and Chad. I've just done Vallow just because I should do Daybell. That's what they call her in court. It's not anything on purpose. In fact, if I was caught in her web, she'd want me to say Daybell because she's insistent on Daybell. So maybe I'm not in the web anymore. Maybe I'm secretly crawling out. Kelly says, why did Lori smile when they said your name, Nate? Did you see that? It's like she has you under her spell. Please be cautious. Two of you think she's got me wrapped up in her spell. She was smiling. I honestly didn't see that till I saw the video. I don't know why she was smiling. She smiles a lot. She walks in. She's the most cheerful person. She walks in, smiles. Hey, how you doing? She's very perky, very happy. Do you think there'll be a mistrial? I hope not, says Shannon. I hope not. This judge is running a pretty tight ship, but you never know. Are you worried about the gender makeup? So many men with flirty Lori, Christina says. I don't know. You know, some people have told me they think it'll backfire if she tries to flirt or, you know, woo them. I think that her behavior more than anything will either help or hurt her case. What do you think the smoking gun evidence in this case will be? Ooh, that's from Sarah. Well, the text messages before Charles died, the activities of Lori after he died, going to Burger King, going to get flip-flops, taking JJ to school. I think those are pretty damning. Donna, I thought I remembered you saying you'd love an opportunity to interview, and you've mentioned lately you've spoken to her a number of times. Were those moments off the record? Yeah, Donna, they were all off the record. And I hope one day I can report to you and that I can do an interview with her. I think it might happen. I hope so. Do you have a favorite podcast that you listen to decompress? From Tess. I listened to one yesterday. I honestly go to the most popular lists every morning just to see like what new ones come out. I listened to one. It's about a scam of some guys that rigged a fishing contest. I know it's weird, but it was pretty interesting. It was a true story. But I'll listen to news podcasts. I listen to the Daily every day, and I'll listen to other stuff. I'll listen to in-depth true crimes, but not like day of, like, here's the headline from true crime. What do you think about the sidebar techniques, Durrell? I think they're actually pretty effective. I think that was pretty genius for them to come up with, knowing that Lori couldn't approach and they needed a way to communicate, and they all just put on these headphones and talk. Pretty cool. Did Lori flirt with the men today? She did not. She didn't have a chance to go one-on-one with them. She presented herself in front of the jury. I think that maybe some of them were surprised to see, oh, wow, that is the defendant. Okay, if you have any more questions, please let me know. Questions for Rachel. Here is where you can find me. I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Insta, and I'm on YouTube. And for those of you watching on Meetin' the Eatons, my family's channel, thank you. I see that many of you are on there. I don't know why this came up on the screen, but sorry about that. We do want to take a minute and acknowledge Charles Vallow. Here is a photo of him with Colby Ryan on Colby's wedding day. We're here because of Charles Vallow, sadly, because he lost his life and he should be remembered. So hopefully justice will happen for Charles here in the coming weeks. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow here on Courtroom Insider. Would love to have you join us. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel to be caught up to date. And we will see you. I hope you have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.